Cameron, maker of good movies, bad on-set environments, and strange choices when it comes to weaponry.
We got nukes, we got knives, sharp sticks.
In 2009, Cameron made Avatar. You may have heard of it. It's a story about corporate scumbags fighting blue aliens on a lush, verdant planet full of an element ridiculously called unobtainium. Yes, I know unobtainium is a real engineering joke for the 50s, and no, that doesn't make it any less stupid. Please stop writing to me. And speaking of stupid things in this movie, what was up with that robot with the giant knife, Jim? You know the one.
Come on, come to Papa.
Zoe Saldana's character and her cat thing get into a scrap with Stephen Lang's military dickhead Colonel Miles Quaritch. He's in a big robot. He loses his gun, which is really stupid on its own. Fighter jets don't have hands to hold their missiles for exactly this reason, and as a last resort pulls a knife from a little scabbard on its hip. It is adorable. But it's surely one of the most wildly impractical weapons a robot could possibly have, and one has to question where he came up with the idea. This isn't Cameron's first rodeo as far as ridiculous weapons are concerned. In Aliens, Ripley decides to duct tape a pulse rifle to a flamethrower with honestly pretty impressive results. So much so that the idea of taping guns together has become something of a cultural touchstone. And Aliens is a movie full of weird weapon choices. The M56 smart gun that Vasquez and Drake wield is essentially an MG42 machine gun mounted on a Steadicam rig that basically can't aim up or down. Fine if you live in the two-dimensional hellscape of Doom, not quite so fine in the actual three-dimensional real world, but whatever, it looks cool. The power loader has a little welding torch by the cockpit, ostensibly for, I guess, impromptu metal work, but it doesn't take a workplace safety inspector to figure out that that torch is way too close to the user's face. And yes, a tiny little flame isn't technically a weapon, but Ripley definitely uses it as one, and I need to be talking about the power loader to end this paragraph so I can segue back to Avatar. The Amplified Mobility Platforms, or AMPs, are, for all intents and purposes, jazzed up forklifts with legs, much like the power loader. Nailed it. I'm not sure which aspect of mobility is improved by putting a person inside a slightly bigger, heavier person, when you could have probably built a helicopter for the same money. And I question the wisdom of constructing what is essentially a suit of armour and making the entire thing out of metal except for the bit where the squishy pilot is. Oh, would you look at that, the fragile glass canopy immediately cracked. Who could have possibly foreseen this? Before you write in, yes, I know the pilots need a hermetically sealed suit to protect them from Pandora's inhospitable atmosphere, but spacesuits exist. Like, now. We have those, we don't need robots for that. The only real use I can see for the AMPs is as vehicles designed to match the Na'vi in close combat, but those resources seem like they would have been better spent elsewhere. Yeah, the Na'vi are big and agile, but humans still have guns and they still work just fine whether the meaty thing you're shooting is 5 feet tall or 10. But let's accept at face value that the AMPs are a great idea and that for some reason they're the only way to counter the Na'vi, because apparently airstrikes and artillery are too expensive to run on Pandora, but armies of bipedal robots are fine. Why does this robot have a knife? If it needs a close combat weapon, why is it stored in a little pouch and held when it could have just extended from its forearm? Why does it even have hands? Tanks don't have hands! Ugh. Cameron has, to my knowledge, never addressed any of this criticism directly, but I think we all know the answer. It's staring us right in the face every time we watch Avatar, and the truth will, presumably, rear its ugly head once more in the sequel. That's right, he watched Gundam Wing in the 90s. Not only did Cameron not come up with the idea, but he clearly took the wrong message from those moments when Troa Barton exhausted the ammunition of the 3 million various Vulcan cannons mounted on the Gundam heavy arms, and was forced to use this travesty of a weapon. And in Jim's defense, at least his knife was ostensibly for use against things a knife might work on, unlike the heavy arms which tends to hit big metal robots with it, although that inexplicably works for some reason. Knife robots seem to be a recurring theme in the 90s. Ava Unit 1 has an anti-AT field knife, which is, Well, that's really stupid, and Neon Genesis Evangelion is beloved and should know better, but at least it was just the one. And what the fuck? This one has a knife too? And this one is like a box cutter. What the hell? I suppose it could have been worse though. He could have ended up copying the full bullet Zaku, a mobile suit designed for use in space with a massive white-hot blade or heat hawk right in front of its face. The only thing less useful than a knife is a knife that you've taped to your forehead that you can only actually use via headbutts. Not to mention the problematic design of putting a thing that generates an enormous amount of heat with a vacuum of space on one side and all of your communication systems and sensors on the other. Or the Gushyan Rebake Full City, not a name I've made up, who runs into battle with a giant pair of scissors instead of almost literally anything else. Anything would be more useful in combat than this. Even a knife. I guess giant scissors are sort of like two knives bolted together in such a way as to make both of them slightly worse at their main job, unless that main job is paper crafts, in which case they're great. Or, if he'd been a fan of Western animation, he could have made Stephen Lang's AMP turn from a robot with a big gun into a slightly bigger gun that another robot then needs to shoot. A transformation so wildly impractical that the guy who would end up firing said gun would attempt a coup d'etat every single episode and almost never got punished for it. Presumably because everyone kind of agreed with his reasoning. And you just know there was at least one instance of Megatron getting stuck in gun form due to some kind of mechanical error, where he just had to sit silently on the floor of the Decepticon ship for like 2 days until someone, probably Shockwave, discovered him and took him to the robot doctor. So, all in all, I guess what I'm saying is that as stupid as Jim's knife robot is, it could have been worse. Not that much worse, but still worse. Will we see the dumb robo-knife return in the Way of Water? Or will we get something new and equally ridiculous? Perhaps he'll introduce a deep-sea AMP unit armed with a flamethrower, or an AMP unit designed to be happy equipped with my personal finances. Who can say? We can, in the form of wild speculation. So, until next time, get cracking on inventing your own insane robot armaments that Jim Cameron will definitely see and use in Avatar 3.